Hi, everybody. Welcome to Query Workshop number 4. We have a full workshop today with evaluations, and I'm going to start touching on writing mechanic errors. These are red flag words and phrases that can label you as a writing rookie and sabotage your submission totally. Off to Deleteville. There are actually quite a few, but what we're going to do today is just kind of look at perhaps the worst offender, and that's using ing when you have verbs that are like was, running, was reading, was screaming, was dancing. That's the weakest form of the verb, and it's something when I was an acquisitions editor, if I found more than 2 or 3 ings on the first page, I didn't bother to read anymore because I realized that the writer they just weren't quite ready for prime time.
Molly, one question. What about a regular gerund that doesn't have the was?
Give me an example.
Like, oh gosh, hiding in the trees, Sadie decided not to watch the ferry.
Okay, it's stronger if you say she hid.
Okay.
It's just more powerful. ing makes words, it's weaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to write. And somewhere in all of this, folks, it's not supposed to be that easy. And it isn't. This is one thing I know that everybody struggles with the query letter, and yet so few writers give themselves credit for having written something that now they want to use to land an agent and a publisher. That's an incredible accomplishment. You all know people who say, well, someday I'm going to write this great novel and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's going to be just wonderful and New York Times bestseller, and they never do it. And so if you look at what you've accomplished, you have done it. So we're going to take a look at the queries, the next version, more or less in this order. We have 2 nonfiction people joining us. And so we'll start out with the fiction queries. And the reason that I do this in a certain order is when you hear and look at someone else's work, you learn, because there are only so many ways you can screw up a query letter. And when you hear and see this in someone else's work, you will begin to recognize it in your own. That's the point, is to make sure that you become your own best editor. You hear things when you read your work out loud, you see them, and they become more evident because you've learned to see them in other people's work. And I would remind you all, you Submission Central folks, that your mic is open. So if you have barking dogs or screaming kids or whatever, please turn your microphone off. Your mic is down lower left-hand corner on the bar at the bottom, and all you need to do is click on it and that mutes it, or I can do it for you. Now we have, Lisa was going to be here to practice pitching. However, technically she can't this afternoon. So Janet has volunteered to share her pitch, so you can hear what a pitch sounds like when someone is speaking to an agent, either at a pitch fest, which is kind of like speed dating except it's pitching, or at a one-on-one pitch appointment, which you can get at writers' conferences. They're usually 15-20 minutes when you have the agent's undivided attention and can discuss your project with them. So this week we are going to focus primarily on the 3rd paragraph, which is a little different than the first 2 because it's information only. I can't stress this enough. It's information, you're not telling your story, You're not telling about your story. You're giving information about it, but you're also giving information about you, a little bit about your background, what you've done, if you've published, and that's not always necessary. But what agents want to see is that you are involved in expanding your skills. So stick to business. You want the agent actually to read your first paragraph, be interested, move on to your second. And at that point, you want them to skim through your background and move on to your synopsis. So I'll call this out because it seems like we have had some issues with telling about the story or wandering off into chat land. And you're not chatting with the agent. You don't want them to be your best friend. You want them to represent your project and help you find a publisher. Now, as usual, because it's all tied together, we're going to take a look at subject lines, hopefully, and some of you have not submitted those, and story cores. And again, there are some of you here who have not submitted this, which I know that it's a challenge. Sometimes it's a challenge finding and defining and sticking with that story core, but you can't just eliminate it. Because if you don't know it, you will never be able to write a query that works. Okay, about the process, you're going from telling your story to selling it. Doesn't matter if you're fiction or nonfiction. The process is a little different between the two, but the situation is that you're shifting what you're doing. And so I suggest that you not be too hard on yourself. Some of you progressed a little more quickly than others. Just like, don't worry about it. It's not a foot race. It's a progression. And you're learning to do something that you've never done before, which is sell yourself as a talented writer with a saleable manuscript. All writers who work with me and go through the process, eventually, some faster than others, learn to write a query that gets an agent, lands an agent. So you are all in good company, and you're going to help each other. Now, some writers, and they come along every once in a while, will whine about how hard this all is, and they're never happy with the fact they don't progress, and it's because they don't do the homework. So if you want to get published, you do the work, you'll get there. So we're going to begin this week with Lisa because her revision issues pertain to almost everybody in terms of what you need to write tight, powerful, and engaging text. Remember, your query goal, no matter what you're writing, is to keep the agent interested and reading. So, who wants to read Lisa? Volunteer or I'll pick you. Okay.
I'll read.
Okay. All righty. Off you go.
Starting at who is your protagonist?
Absolutely, because we need to hear the whole thing.
Okay. Who is your protagonist? Kay, a victim of a hit-and-run car accident. What does she want? To remember her past so she can move on with her life. Comment from Molly, move on with her life or survive to live her life. Big difference. Should I say your comments?
Yeah, that's good because I want you all to think about that as well. Okay.
Okay. What stands in her way? Blocked memory. What will happen if she doesn't get what she wants? She'll be murdered. Email subject line. Kay must remember her past to have a future. This works for now.
Yeah. Okay.
Imagine that's Molly.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, keep going.
Lisa's advised first paragraph. Kay Smith awakens from a coma, unable to remember anything but a few vague, disturbing memories about the hit-and-run driver who forced her car off the road and into an icy river. Hazy recollections and vivid, terrifying dreams emerge about a notorious serial strangler, leaving Kay panicked about the hidden psychological trauma holding her memory hostage. Determined to face her dark past and move on with her life, Kay searches online for clues to her identity, only to chase one false hope after another. Information wrangled from a hospital clerk convinces Kay she is Jane Doe, a comatose car accident victim matching Kay's physical and medical description who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. When the records clerk is strangled hours after alerting Kay to a stalker on her trail, she fears her own life is on the line, with time running out to remember her dark past before a killer catches up with her. Kay turns to a new friend, Nick Costa, to hide her from the deadly stalker hot on her trail. Safely tucked away, she's devastated to learn the shocking truth Nick's been hiding. He's a Secret Service agent protecting her, Angela Lockhart, the missing First Lady, from a lethal White House conspiracy that left her sister, Amy, and a young intern dead. The news leaves Angela haunted by nightmares, confused by emerging memories, and plagued by shady suspicions about her own role in the murders. Nick insists Angela lay low until her memory returns, but when the body count rises in her wake, she refuses to stay in the shadows. Rocked with guilt and unwilling to put any more lives in jeopardy to save her own, Kay sets out alone to cover the secrets of her shadowy past and confront those she suspects of plotting and executing murder. It's a plan Kay knows is fraught with danger and with a high probability of meeting the same fate as her sister, dead at the hands of a vicious strangler. Lost and Found is complete at 88,000 words. I've published popular articles and research papers throughout my career as an organizational psychologist. In 2013, I retired to study fiction writing and work on my first novel. I'm an active member of Sisters in Crime, President, Atlanta Chapter 2016-17, published in March 2016. Mystery Writers of America, Southeastern Chapter Membership Survey Specialist 2015, and the Atlanta Writers Club, I've honed my writing skills through continuing education classes, webinars, workshops, conferences, Boucheron 2015, Killer Nashville 2013-16 panelists 2016, beta reader reviews, and professional critiques. Then Lisa followed her third paragraph with the following. A one-page synopsis and a copy of Lost and Found follows this letter. I enjoyed bringing Angela and Amy's twisting tale to life on the written page. I'm confident you'll find Lost and Found a well-written page-turner worthy of your valuable time. Thank you for consideration in representing me and my manuscript. Sincerely, Lisa.
Okay, that's all right. Now, this is a great example, this entire paragraph here, of something that you should never, ever do. Never, ever. Well, it's like you get your examples wherever they show up, you know. You do not need to tell more about the story with a fourth paragraph. Every second you tie the reader down reading anything extraneous is a lost second or lost moments where you are pulling them away from what you want them to do, which is move on to your synopsis. Now, if you feel that you really need to tell more about your story, then you've missed the point of the first and second paragraph. So that the whole point of the third paragraph, which we'll see some today, title, word count, your experience as it pertains to your story. And I noticed, Vicki, and you did a masterful job. I mean, you stumbled all over the place in here.
I'm sorry.
No, this happens because it's very, very confusing. You have a lot more information there than anybody needs. Now, for some reason, Lisa redid her first paragraph from last week when it was actually pretty darn good. So I suggested that she use that last week's as her opening paragraph. And I've highlighted some words to delete, like in yellow. She awakens with vague memories from her life. It's not important. Keep it tight. Hazy recollections, serial strangler, panicked. Now, the issue here is anything extra that you put in your first paragraph, again, slows down the reader. Remember, if it's an agent reading, they have seconds to make a decision to read your work or send it to Deleteville. Seconds. And when you fill up your first paragraph, if you fill it with things, with words that aren't necessary, you you lose the potential to have more of your work read. Now again, and I went on to Lisa's second paragraph, which is, it's pretty tight, but it brought up some questions to me. You know, for the deadly stalker. Well, obviously they're deadly, safely tucked away. You don't need to say that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to say she's the survivor of a lethal. Of course, a conspiracy is lethal. You don't have to repeat or describe things so intensely if you've done a good job with your nouns and your verbs. So, and some questions came up for me. She's rocked with guilt, and I wanted to know about what. I wasn't clear what was making her feel guilty. She doesn't want to put more lives in jeopardy. How does she know this is a situation? Remember that she's told us that this woman is remembering and recovering her memory. So when you add elements that increase the, what does that mean? Dada, ask more questions. That can sometimes just click that, go off to Deleteville. Agents are not going to try to figure out what you're trying to say. Now, what really came up for me is that this guy is Secret Service and she ditches him. How do you do that? You know, lock him in a closet? I have no idea how you get rid of a Secret Service agent. And she's got a plan. Is it a plan or a bold move? I don't know. I had more questions than I wanted an agent to have. Now here's a writing mechanic hint about the M dash. Do you all see this long dash here?
Yeah.
It's called an M dash. It's not two dashes like this. That is nothing. And what happens when you use the M dash or the two dashes like this? Frequently in translation, it gets lost. It turns into stars, it turns into asterisks, it turns into sometimes the plus sign. So I just suggest you don't use this type of punctuation any place, simply because going from system to system can change things.
So you're saying don't use the M dash or don't use the double hyphens?
Don't use either one. Find another way to punctuate. The M dash is used to denote that whatever's coming next fulfills what you just read, tells you more about it. Double dashes are double dashes. They're used by people who don't know how to punctuate. And, you know, frankly, it's more important to tell a good story and to clearly explain what you have than to be the world's greatest punctuator. But these two things, the M dash and the dashes, are just troublesome. Now, with Lisa's, I can't even get it out, her third paragraph, and you notice that Vicki stumbled all over the place because there's so much in here. So I just highlighted what I would leave out. And here, look at how much shorter that makes her third paragraph. Again, you want the agent to go, and skip right over, go right on, and move on to the synopsis. And I questioned the word popular because I don't know what that means. When you use a word, when you use an adjective that, like beautiful, or, well, beautiful is another one. What is beautiful? What is popular? What does that mean? So anyway, we're going to move on. And I said this last week, something for you all to be aware of. If you are a first-time novelist and your story runs over 80,000, 90,000 words, you are perhaps asking for trouble. Because when I was doing sending everybody their manuscripts back in the old days of snail mail, if I had a manuscript and the author said it's complete at blah 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 and it was really long, the first thing I just knew was that they hadn't figured out how to self-edit.
Can I ask a question about?
Yes, go ahead.
About the M dashes. My MS Word automatically converts double dashes to an M dash. Are you saying that that's unsafe to do, that you need to
don't
open the...
use it. Use another type of punctuation, Alan. Doesn't matter if Word translates it. Mine does too. What happens when it goes from, let's say, Firefox to Chrome or is read on a smartphone? It just gets all screwy. Don't do it.
So you're saying it's not enough simply to open the insert and make sure it's an actual index?
No, because once you change systems, looking at it, you can lose it.
Okay.
Okay?
Huh?
And I want to, again, the ongoing nag today, the nag of the day, well, there's several, but this one is about that third paragraph. It's not the place to explain about your story. If you feel compelled to make sure that the agent knows how fabulous it is, go back and look at your first and second paragraph of your query letter because they haven't done the job. And your submission can go arg off to Deleteville. Okay, now Carol. Carol, are you here today? No, Carol's not here today. Okay, who's going to read? Someone needs.
Yeah, I'm here, Molly.
You are here.
I am here.
Okay, good. Now, someone needs to read your story, and I'm going to really nag on you. So I'll threaten you. Don't you dare run off.
Okay.
Okay, someone who will volunteer to read Carol's?
I will.
Okay. Okay, Vicki, you've already done it. Let's have somebody else. Let's torture someone else.
This is Janet. I can read it.
Okay, go, Janet. Thanks.
Who is this story about? Fairy Princess Shaylee. What does she want? Peace and friendship between fairies and pixies so she can maintain her friendship with Pixie Broad, who gives her some pixie dust gratis when she is told by her father, the king, that she needs to earn it. What stands in their way? Her father, the king. What is the terrible or else that might occur if she doesn't get what she wants? She will lose forever a dear friend along with her chances of earning pixie dust. This has become muddled. Does she want free pixie dust or peace or to please her father? Same issues we discussed last week. Carol wrote, fairies and pixies have been enemies since time began. Secret friends, Fairy Princess Shaylee and Pixie Broad, want to change that with a new idea they call fairies and pixies, friends forever. When the king finds out about this friendship, he forbids Shaylee from ever seeing Broad again. Will they figure out a way around this or lose their friendship forever? Question, does he forbid the friendship or the plan for peace? One day when Shaylee is out riding her pony, she ponders what her father told her. To earn her pixie dust, she must show she has a pure heart and that her goal is to serve the highest good in the kingdom. He said, unfortunately, I'm unable to read that word. It's behind. Oh, he said until then she would have to be patient, which she wasn't. As she heads for home, she hears Brock calling out for help. She knows she must obey her father and not have any contact with him, so she continues on her way home. But Brock's cries get more intense. Will she listen to her heart and go to Brock or disobey her father's command? And will the two kingdoms continue to be enemies to the end, ending forever their chances of being best friends? Fairy Princess Shaylee is a chapter book of 2,600 words. I have sold more than 24 stories and articles to a variety of magazines, including Highlights for Children, Girls' Life, The Writer magazine, and am the author of 7 children's books. I was a writing mentor for and have given presentations and speeches for the Minnesota chapter of the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, and taught classes at the Loft Literary Center in Minneapolis. Comment, good job. Your third paragraph works. Tight, clean, quick to read, and shows your writing history.
Okay, thank you. All righty, now, Carol, you mentioned something has changed here, and I read it twice and thought, aha, she wants free access to fairy dust. Of course, other things come to mind, but I realize this is a children's story. Is this why she's friends with Brott? Is he her supplier? Now, you have written that when she's out riding, she hears him call for help. Why does he need help? I mean, how serious is this problem? She decides to obey her father and just keep going home, even though the cries get more intense. So what came up for me, is she going to listen to her heart, go to Brott, disobey her dad? Will the kingdoms continue to be enemies, and will she lose her best friends? Okay, you have 4 options here. Which one is the most pressing? What is the core of the story? Is it her friendship with Brott based on the free fairy dust that she doesn't have to earn? This really shifts the focus of the story, even though the agent wouldn't see it. But we know what it is, and we know it's here. Does she choose the dust? Does she choose to save her supplier? What is her quest? Now, at this point, I don't understand the need. I don't understand Shaylee's need. I don't understand the terrible or else. Now, we talked about this last time, and quite a few things were thrown around. And I think that you're not clear about exactly the core of this story. It's impossible to write a query that works if you don't know about your story core. So can you tell me right now what it is, or are you gonna have to chew on that a bit?
It's kind of difficult. It's all tied together. She wants the fairy dust because her father said she needs to earn it, but she's impatient and she doesn't want to wait. It's kind of all tied together.
Okay, Carol, it cannot be in your query. It's simply because you don't have enough space. Remember, Carol, you don't have a lot of space. 350 words, give or take a little. That's not a lot of space to put much of anything. You have to know more than anything, what does she want? Like last week, we all kind of seemed to come to a consensus that peace between fairies and pixies was not her bottom line. That it might have been either keeping her friendship with Brott, or it might be, what was the other one? I guess I have to go look. But in other words, they're all woven together. That's the plot of that's how stories are plotted. But in this query, there has to be something she wants more than anything, and something that will happen if she doesn't get what she wants. Remember, this is the agent reading this. It's not the book browser. It's the agent. And they have to understand that. And I know they're connected. You have to separate them, Carol, because it's your story. If she doesn't want to do the work, it's not that she's impatient, it's that she's darn lazy. And maybe she isn't. Maybe she gets over it. Again, I don't know.
Okay.
You're going to have to chew on that. Have some imaginary conversations with her in your head. I do this with characters all the time. And sometimes what comes out of that is they tell me what they need to tell me.
That's a good idea.
Because, it's, these characters are alive in your head and your heart. You brought them to life. So that's your homework this weekend. Find your story core.
Okay.
This might help you. Submit this to the Facebook page. Remind the group what your story is, and then state your story core and see, and here's the deal. Submit your story core and the terrible or else. And let us give you some feedback on that.
Okay.
Because until you get that, there's no point in going any further. You need that first.
Okay, thank you.
And you're not the only one. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Okay, Dory, are you here?
I am.
Okie dokie. Now, we're going to take a look at Dory's latest draft. And who wants to volunteer to read it?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Off you go.
All right. Who is your protagonist? Levi. What does he want and why? No answer. What is the terrible or else if he doesn't get what he wants? Addiction, mental illness, suicide? I'm not quite sure whether that's Carol's comment or Molly's comment or Dory's.
It doesn't matter. Keep going. It's just we're just feeding out information right now. Thanks.
Okay. Subject line: cancer sucks when it tackles your mother. At age 16, Levi Yoakum's mother has cancer, and he feels like he's been hit by a dime-sized 200-pound linebacker. Coriander High School's junior running back Levi Yoakum starts his days with a mixing bowl of cereal and a bear hug for his mom, until his youth smashes into harsh maturity as a big hairy linebacker named Cancer plows into his life. Now, for the first time, he's afraid his opponent might win. This opponent might win. Completed at 54,500 words, Turn will appeal to readers of Fault in Our Stars and 13. My background includes 3 years as a reporter for the Salt Lake Valley Journal. For 7 years, I've been an active member and past vice president and president of Utah RWA, Romance Writers of America, and participate in the Utah League of Writers and Absolutely Writers, as well as 2 critique groups. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Doreen, you have been extremely creative, but this is not a query. Again, we went over this last week, and I think that you and Carol have the same need to really digest your story and what the core is, because as you have written above, it's unclear what he wants and what happens if he doesn't get what he wants. Now, last week, a few things came up. Does he want the status quo forever? Does he want his best friend mom to always be there for him? Is he afraid of going off to college and being alone? By the way, your third paragraph worked really well, but we're working on the first 2. Tell me, Doreen, right now, what you think the core of your story is.
The core of the story is his confidence through the maturity. If he doesn't mature with the death of his mother going on, I mean, there's arguments, there's everything that, once she dies, he's got to either grow up or have some kind of a relationship with the drugs that he's taking in order to continue. It's either suicide or life.
I didn't get that at all.
Alan, neither did I, and that's...
It's a young adult. It's a boy's young adult.
I understand that. In fact, we've gone through several versions of your story, and I know that it's a lot of times it's just frustrating as heck to be futzing with these and not to nail it down, because whatever you decide, see, like I typed, there's 3 things here. Is it suicide or life, or is it growing up? And they're not quite the same thing.
Well, maturity is the way that you learn how to turn around on the addiction.
Is that what he wants, Dory? Now you know that because you're like a full-on grown-up. Is that what this kid? Is that what he thinks he needs? Is that what he wants?
That's what his reality is.
I know it's no, it's not the same question. I'm gonna nail you here, kiddo. We're gonna pull this out of you no matter what.
He's confused when his mother tells him that she's not going to do anything to stop the cancer from
Okay, spreading. Now wait, maybe that's your core. In other words, what he wants mom to fight and not give up. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. All right. That's pretty darn good. I think that's your core.
Good. Okay.
But it's not my story. Yeah. What do you think?
No, it is. It is for his core. That's what his whole thing is all about.
Okay, because on one of your versions, and it really, really worked for me. You talked about nights of crying and fighting and
Yes.
tension over this.
Yes.
You really, really struggled with it. So my question is, all right, now my question, I'm suggesting that you go back, flesh this out with that as the story core. Write it at the top of your query. He
Okay.
wants mom to fight and not give up. And what is the terrible, okay, tell me, is the terrible or else? What is it?
What is the terrible or else?
Because see, you've got some options here. He could kill himself.
His options, he's thinking that if his mother goes ahead and just gives up, he's going to end up giving up too.
No, that's you, the adults talking. Go into Levi's head. Because you write this really well when you get into his head space.
No, he's a good kid.
Okay, he wants her to fight. He
Yes.
wants her to
He
fight.
wants to
And
fight, so he's arguing with her.
No,
His what is the terrible or else?
okay, anybody have some suggestions? What is the terrible or else? If what he wants mom to fight and not give up.
So if she gives up, then he gives up also.
That's the terrible or else?
He gives up by doing drugs and hanging out with the wrong kids, or making poor choices, or he fights back himself to learn to become a mature adult, or on his way.
That's a positive resolution. But right now, what is the terrible or else? Because remember,
He's going to be ending out on the streets. He's afraid that if his mother dies, his only other person dies, he's going to be penniless, out on the streets. His whole life is going to end up nothing.
Okay, now just a minute here now. So in other words, he wants mom to fight and not give up so he won't be on the streets.
Yes.
Well, that's as
Nothing.
opposed to wanting something for her. I don't think that's the core of what he needs. He wants her to keep living for him. To be with him has nothing to do with support, has nothing to do with the streets. He wants his mom, he wants his friend.
He wants his life to be as it is. He doesn't want the change. He doesn't want to have to grow up to where the change is going to lead him.
How about, or he loses all hope?
Through drugs. There you go.
But what happens? What happens if he loses all hope?
He's terrified about being alone.
I think that's what it is. He doesn't want to be alone. Remember, if this is YA, that's what a teenager, they're all about me. He doesn't want to be alone. So I agree with John. He doesn't want to be alone.
Okay, Doreen, that gives you some things to think about, right?
Yes.
Remember that the terrible or else. Thank you. And they say Starbucks don't deliver. See, here we come. Wasn't that nice?
And as a teenager, his mother's probably made all decisions for him up till this point.
She also
now he's have to make adult decisions, and he has nothing to do it with.
he doesn't have, she's already handled everything. It's just that he isn't listening. He isn't, all of a sudden, he's like, I'm idiot. She's taking care of everything. He just doesn't want to accept it because he wants everything to stay the same. He wants to fight her battle, and she's not doing it.
Okay, now that's a little bit muddled, but it's a little closer. Remember, if he wants her to fight,
Yes.
that is to create a resolution. He wants her to fight to what? Why?
So that he doesn't end up alone.
I think that's
I mean, this is
All right, if those are the two things, if these are the two things, Dory, here's what he wants, and the terrible or else would be ending up alone. Right away in that second paragraph, you need to reveal through Levi's thoughts and actions and feelings how mom does everything for him. Now, however, he is getting ready to go off to college, or he's, and is she going to go with him?
Well, I mean, that's where the book's pretty much started at, is where they're getting ready to go and look at campuses, and I mean, life is ready, getting ready.
In other words, they're ready to make decisions for his.
Yes.
All right. We're in the core zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's up to you to have some conversations with Levi in your head, and mom as well, because she certainly is a part of the story, and figure out how to do that all for next week. Okay.
Okay.
Super. Listen, I love you. You're a determined woman, and that's good. That is great, and you'll figure it out. It will come together. Good work, group.
How old was Levi? I thought he was like 14.
No, he's 17 years old by the end of the book.
Okay, you know what? You might.
Yeah.
He's 16. You've got him here. Okay.
Yeah. It says it right at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. All righty. So we're going to move on to Linda. So who is going to read?
I can read it.
Okay, off you go.
Journey. Subject line: a journey of 10,000 miles begins with one act of rebellion. Great subject line. Who wants what and why? Wu Michin wants freedom to participate in family decisions that will affect her marriage. What stands in the way? Chinese culture tradition gives the oldest male in the family the power to make decisions in the best interest of the family, regardless of what individual family members want. What will happen if Michin doesn't get what she wants? The head of the family will send her husband to America, and they may be separated for years until he's allowed to return. Revised query. Newlywed Wu Michin wants a close relationship with her husband and the freedom to plan their future together. The Chinese tradition demands all family members obey the order of the oldest male who's responsible for the family's missing text.
Yeah, we were missing something here, but we kind of know where we're going with this, okay?
Okay. Months pass, then years. Michin has no comfort except the few letters her husband sends, his photograph, and memories of their short time together. No one tells her when she might see him again. In the 5th year, Michin's sorrow turns into anger and then rebellion. If her husband can't come home, she'll find her way to him. The family patriarch, furious with Michin, tries to send her back to China when she reaches San Francisco. But she disguises herself as a boy and crosses America by train. Michin rejoices when she sees her husband again, but she soon learns there is trouble ahead. Her husband has been ordered to divorce her, or his family will disown him. With love, Michin sees no point in living, but will her husband still love her when he remembers her rash actions cause the loss of his family? Can Michin find a way to make peace with her in-laws and live with her husband? Complete at 90,000 words, Unbound Woman won first place in an ethnic novel contest sponsored by Romance Times Magazine. I belong to the Augusta Writers and am an active member of RWA, Romance Writers of America and Georgia Romance Writers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, nice job of explaining. However, and this frequently happens in the process of explaining, the query got really, really short. 250 words is almost not enough to tell a story this powerful. So I suggest that she combines some of the information from her other version, which talks about she hates the tradition, she falls in love, she wants them to be partners, he's gone, maybe he'll never come back. That works. Second paragraph, Again, take some of the information from the last query, especially about missionary school and experiencing freedom. This demonstrates her love of learning, and she also gets a taste for Western culture. It also, remember, when you have a protagonist who acts and reacts, you need to have some kind of a basis, like with Doree's story. For example, and this works perfectly, the reader needs to see how mom does everything, so all of a sudden when Levi's on his own, how will he cope? Well, this is another situation where Machen learns to become her own person, finds out more about the West, and the tease at the end of her second paragraph, and I think this is really super, really, really well written. This is a great tease and a great challenge. How can she bring together the loss of the family, make peace, and be with her husband?
Molly, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it okay to ask questions within your little mini synopsis there of the query letter?
It's the best way to end your sentences. It's the best way to.
Yeah, don't you want to make it so that they want to know the answer too?
You want the tease is what will happen. Will she? Will they? Will he? You don't want declarative statements. Ask the question. Ask it as a question.
Okay.
Can she find a way to make peace with her in-laws and live with her husband? It's the question. It's the question. Okay?
Uh-huh.
I have read this story. It's really interesting. And the challenge is packing, and most of you have this issue. You have a lot of elements, and you have to pack them somehow into, 2 short paragraphs. And you can do it. You can do it. Okay, now we have Vicky's. Who will read Vicky's?
I'll read Vicky's.
Okay.
Okay, from Vicky. Subject line: it followed her to school one day, breaking all the rules. Great subject line. Who wants what and why? Sadie, 15, lives with cerebral palsy. She wants to belong and be a normal teenager. What stands in her way? Cruel scrutiny from her peers about her disability has left her with no self-esteem. What is the terrible or else? If she doesn't find the strength to believe in her own self-worth, she will crumble in her dark place and give up on living. Dear Agent, born with cerebral palsy, Sadie's tangled walk attracts attention everywhere. She hides the real Sadie, for people only see a broken cripple slithering by. Wow. Except for her one friend who is moving to London, and she's convinced she'll never see him again. Sadie is sent to her grandmother's isolated Catskill mountain home for the summer. In her state of despair, she decides it is a perfect refuge to end her life. But in the forest, as at school, Sadie senses someone is watching her once again. When Sadie unexpectedly comes face to face with a
Malevolent, that's a hard word.
malevolent fairy, Devillia, intrigue puts her suicide plans on hold. As their odd companionship changes, unexpected emotions surface in Sadie, but she pays a huge price for her encounter with Devillia. Not only is she now responsible for the fairy, but she never knows what to expect from Devillia's antics, and Sadie is filled with constant anxiety. While on a field trip, Devillia is the culprit of a magical incident that makes Sadie even more of a freak. Sadie becomes an international sensation, her disability on display for the world to see. Mortified by Devillia, Sadie finds herself trapped, Devillia destroying what little dignity she has left. Sadie wants to rid herself of Devillia for good until she learns that the one person she truly cares about is in danger. and the only being that can go to his rescue is the Villia. In a mad race against time, Sadie learns the true meaning of love and loss. Can Sadie accept who she is meant to be, or will scrutiny and lack of self-esteem force her to live in a dark place forever? My YA novel, Crooked, is blank, so many words. As a professional actress in New York City, I've created characters and stories at an early age, which then evolved into a love of writing. I live in Manhattan with my husband and am the mother of a sometimes crooked young adult. I also live with a wire-haired dachshund, Clancy, my muse. I look forward to sharing my novel with you.
Okay, Miss Vicki, nice work. You are getting closer to the query that's going to work. First paragraph works, leave it alone for now. However, I think it's important that you take a look at writing mechanics and some red flag words. You have a great vocabulary, use it. Get rid of as much anything as you can, because you're not a rookie. Now, I went just back to what you have, and like in the first paragraph, slithering, that's a great sentence right there. As she slithers by, a broken cripple is another way to write that same sentence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Her one true friend who has moved to London. She senses someone is watching her. She senses someone watches once again. In other words, do you see the power of instead of is watching, someone watches? That makes it more of this moment. And I think that part of the issue with the length of your story, Vicki, is a tendency to overwrite a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been working on that.
Everybody does this.
Words.
Everybody does this. I teach clients when they come to me for assistance with a first draft, which I don't normally do, but I tell them what to do. Vomit it out and clean it up later. There is no other way to say it. Write it. Anytime you have a note, highlight it. Keep writing. Don't go back and revise and trim and edit. Get it out there. Get it out there. That's what matters. Then go back and clean it up. Writing is not writing. It's revising. But, it's how boring to say, instead of saying, I wrote a novel that was published, if you said, I revised a novel that was published
20 million times.
Exactly. And that's the value of listening to someone else read your work. Where do they stumble?
Mm-hmm.
And, when this got a wow, the broken cripple slithering by, even though it's got an ing on it, that is so poignant. Also, I heard something. Wait a minute, I need to tell you. I think, all right, her core need is for self-acceptance.
Uh-huh.
It's not to escape scrutiny. It's for self-acceptance, because she has obviously lost self-esteem because she's different. But that means that the need that's below that is self-acceptance. I just heard that. And I've read your work quite a bit in the past month.
Right.
I know Sadie, bless her heart. Now, stick with your story core. And I made some points here for you to consider when you write your next draft. It worked better. She attempts suicide, awakens, and she's got a lap full of crystal shards or crystal whatevers. She meets the fairy. The fairy can be kind of mean. What do you mean in relationship to what? She puts her suicide plans on hold for the moment. Why? They spend time together. Why? How does this change Sadie from what to what? Because you've got some really enormous phrases that changes their life forever. Well, that could mean anything. Mm-hmm. You need to be really, really specific. What is the price? There's a price. Why does she do it? why does she become responsible or feel responsible for Develia? Apparently they go and do things together. Does Develia, you can answer this one, does she go to school with Sadie?
Yes.
Okay, that's part of your title. She follows her to school one day. Na 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 na.
And she gets back at the mean. Develia attacks invisibly because Sadie can see her. The mean girls.
Okay, and because you want to be as with it as you can, which means she comes to international attention via a YouTube video that goes viral. Because that's about the worst thing for a lot of kids that can happen.
Yeah.
If it's not a good video, especially if it shows them being like absolute idiots, and that stays with them for life.
Mhm.
So she has to make a choice, keep Develia and save her friend, or kick the fairy out and allow her friend to die. Does her friend have a name?
Finn. Should I put his name in at the very beginning?
Perhaps, yes, because he becomes an integral part of the story.
He's
In other words, he's the reason that she has to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the terrible? Okay, you've got a terrible or else in here. Just a minute, I'm going back to here. Will Sadie accept who she is meant to be? See, I don't think that's the terrible or else. Because what does this mean? Meant to be. What does that mean exactly? Can Sadie accept herself for how she is and be the best that she can as she is? Oh, I like that. Okay, that's workable.
Okay.
The more
will she just remain in this dark place forever?
you don't have to say that. Is she going to, or well, all right, you might want to work that in. But the point is, that's that's the point. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So therefore, hone in on that every single time with everything you're writing. It's about her becoming more of who she is, and that's self-accepting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, and you can relook at this, and I'll also have, I wanted to yell at you here for just a minute, nicely, of course. So you've got your novel complete. And then you do this stuff. You've been an actress and created characters, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You don't care about your history. What matters is that you live in Manhattan. You've been involved with writers groups for how many years?
Mm-hmm.
How many years?
Oh, gosh. 10.
All right, 10. That's a lot, and that's important. In other words, you're continually working to improve your work.
And I forgot to put in, I'm a member of SCBWI.
Well, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See, that matters because the SCBWI and RWA are two of the best known writers groups on the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though RWA is of America, they've got chapters every place.
Mm-hmm.
And SCBWI is like the best. Well, I'm glad we got that out of you, my dear.
Thanks to me too. Thank you.
And also, wait, I'm not through yelling at you. There's one more thing. When you end with, I look forward to sharing. Oh, please. This is the friendly amateur. This is business, not coffee. Thank you for your time and consideration, period.
Okay.
And this is for all of you.
Yeah.
Do not write sincerely. Your last sentence before the list of your activities has to do with thank you for your time consideration, period. Remember, I never had my phone with me. Remember that you could be, your materials could be written on something this big, this small.
Mhm.
Don't put anything in there that doesn't belong.
They already know my name.
Exactly. Okay, now we're going to go on to Janet Franks Little. And okay, I'll tell you more about this after we take a look at it. Janet, you didn't, and I might not have been clear, but you need to give this information at the beginning of your query, just while we're going through this series.
Okay.
And you never, ever do this. Start right out. Period. Okay, we need, who's going to read Janet's? Who hasn't read yet?
I have one question. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
So we don't say, dear anybody.
No.
We just start the query and that's it.
That's all they want. They know who they are. They know that you love and want them because you contacted them. Do not just jump right in. Honor their time, which is limited, limited, limited.
Okay.
And just jump right in.
Okay.
Okay, so who is going to read? Do I have to call on you? Okay, John, have you read?
I haven't got my, let somebody else do it.
I'll do it again.
Okay, well, let's see. Wait a minute. Who else is? I'm wandered away here for a minute. Okay, Linda, have you read?
I have not read.
Okay, how about if you read this one?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
A person's greatest strength and weakness is their family. Grace Stone is the adult widowed daughter of a rich man's mistress. She has worked hard to distance herself from her mother's lifestyle. When she falls for a man wary of commitment, she must confront her own insecurities and a malicious family member. Grace doesn't want another man in her life, but her four-year-old daughter, Lily, has different ideas. In an unusual circumstance, she meets Beau Charvet, who carries the scars of a nasty divorce. Lily sees him as perfect daddy material. When Grace learns the identity of her own unknown father, she finally has a biological connection to a family. The problem is that she's sleeping with one member and being threatened by another. To protect herself and her child, she makes two demands of Beau. He must declare his love and set boundaries with his sister. Her ultimatum estranges her from him and her newfound family. It takes a knife attack at work and the machinations of a preschooler to secure promises for a loving future together. Glass Promises is a 72,000-word completed romance manuscript. Recently won third place in the Royal Palm Literary Award for unpublished romance. I am a member of the Florida Writers Association and Romance Writers of America. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely.
The forbidden word, sincerely.
Which will be gone.
Thanks, Linda. Now, what you have here is not quite a query letter because, again, the story core is not clear. You're giving information, but you're not relating it. It needs to be related to the person. Time-pressured agents will not read and reread anything to try to figure it out. Now, this is a really cool problem, even though you have an agent waiting. And congratulations on actually you have multiple awards, that's great. You still need to clarify the core of your story because they will have requested probably quite a few men. No, you never know. Sometimes it's a full plate and sometimes it's not so. But you want yours to stand out. Now your title, which is, let's see, what's your title? Glass Promises?
Yes.
That's a great title, especially for today. However, this is what needs to be in your query. Tell who Grace is, what she's done she's distanced herself She meets a man who's wary of commitment, and in meeting him, she has to face her own insecurities. When we first meet Grace, she didn't want another man, but Lily wants a dad. When she meets Bo, he's got some divorce scars. Lily sees him as like yum yum daddy material. Now, things happen in here. You've got some things happening that may need to be explained.
Okay.
But again, it's a query. I don't know how much room, how you can do that and put it in here. The thing that's the most issue that was most interesting to me was that here's a woman who so wants a family, and yet what she does out of fear is create an ultimatum that drives a potential loving mate and great father away. And a preschooler figures out how to bring everybody together. That's kind of precious in many ways. Now, I'd like you to focus more on Grace, not just exactly this happens, then that happens. How does she meets Bo, and how does this give her the hope that she can shed some of her darker, not her darker, but her dubious background and have a normal life? Now, she must have some feelings when Lily becomes so attached to Bo. Absolutely. When you introduce the issue of who's sleeping with whom, this brings up a lot of things that I don't know if you can say that in a way, Janet, that it doesn't interfere with the flow of the story in the second paragraph. You might be able to bypass it with she discovers twisted family relationships that make her wonder, is it worth it to be involved with anyone? The way you've written it, the knife attack, it kind of sounds like my favorite, the bear came out of the woods and ate the bad guys. It's not necessarily, I just love that analogy. It's not necessarily triggered by her, and it needs to be. In other words, something really, really drives him away and pulls him back, but it's centered around Grace. Mm-hmm. Now, I realize this is going to screw up your pitch practice, but what the heck? This is all practice anyway. It's just us, folks.
Right.
Now, Janet, for everybody, Janet has volunteered to be she's going to pitch to me at the end of this session, so you can see how it's done successfully, because she did pitch this story and got the invitation to submit query. And how many pages are you sending?
She asked for the full manuscript.
Wow, and how long is it?
Synopsis, no chapters. In fact, I asked her, I said, want a synopsis? No. How many pages you want? I want the full manuscript.
All right, I'm thinking that what triggered this with her was the kid and this tangled involvement with her own family that occurred unknowingly. Boy, you just have a chance there for a lot of conflict. And we do love conflict. It's conflict and struggle. That's what makes stories. Okay, so we'll come back to Janet here as soon as.
I have a comment on one thing.
Sure.
Go up for a second to the first paragraph. I got a little confused with one thing. She said she's sleeping with one member and being threatened by another. A family member she's sleeping with?
Well, it's a combined family, step family. So she's sleeping with Bo happens to now be her step cousin. So there's no biological thing. It just so happens her aunt.
My first thing was like, oh, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, I wondered if it sounded a little incestuous. That
maybe just step member or something.
Okay.
it just, at first I thought, is she having incest or is she not? That's a tiny thing. Sorry.
Apparently, no, that was a good question. Came up for me too, but I actually had read this before, and I realized I thought about that before as well. Good point. Vicky's a good listener. Okay, now we have another story here from John. And who is going to read John? Da, da, da.
I can read it.
Okie doke.
Who wants what and why? What stands in their way? What is the terrible or else that stands in their way if they don't get what they want? Title, Do Two Wrongs Make a Right? Dear Agent, Jack Crane, a feared gambling debt collector, is shot in the head when he interrupts a large drug transaction. Later, he wakes up face down on a park bench in the rain with no recollection of his past. After being hospitalized in the historic town of Littlefield, New Hampshire, he fears the truth about what he may have done before being shot. He would have liked nothing better than to remember everything, but for the moment he asks, am I a victim or a criminal? To add to his fears, he's carrying $50,000 in cash and hasn't a clue where it came from. While living each day in the dark, trying to remember, he meets a beautiful young woman who claims to be his lover. As his memories return, Jack finds he's not the person he'd like to be, and his lady friend has problems of her own. She has a split personality and a missing husband. Could Jack possibly be the next victim? Eventually, Jack discovers he's not like other human beings. He can perform unimaginable feats. His purpose in life is very different from those around him, and he's told that more will be revealed as his memory returns. How can any of this make sense? Is he a killer or a hero? My novel, Can Two Wrongs Be Made Right, is completed 55,000 words. A sequel is finished, along with 3 other books. I spent most of my technical career in the newspaper and publishing industry. I'm a member of a writers group and in the process of starting a group for first-time writers. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely.
Okay. You guys love that sincerely business. We have been taught to be so polite, and you know, politeness has nothing to do with anything. This is like just old format. John, I read this carefully and I did remember some of your story from a time back. However, it's really hard to evaluate a query without knowing the core. And this needs to be at the top of every homework submission, every single time. You've written a little bit about Jack's inner world, but you tell the story as kind of this happens and that happens, which is not going to hook and hold an agent. Although I must say, your first paragraph ends with an interesting tease. Is he a victim or criminal? That's interesting. Now, when you're in your second paragraph, John, you need to stick with him. You need to stick with his struggles, his internal struggles, to remember and discover. If he finds out he's a criminal, he could end up in jail. So there would be confusion, and then there would be some decisions about how to find out who he is. I would not bring in the girlfriend at all. I think that just muddies the water, because there's enough about him here that is really interesting. You allude to the fact that he finds some unusual things out about himself. And if you bring this up, that's okay, but you need to be sure that you reveal how this aids or doesn't his quest to know who or what he is. It may actually impede it. Remember, at the end of your second query paragraph, you want the agent to think, so what happens? Because it's that question that keeps them reading on. Not, if they're not interested, that's the end of the reading. They won't even read the third one. Now, you've done what quite a few readers do. They talk about a series or a sequel. There's no point in even mentioning it, because agents don't care about the second book until they become engaged or involved in the first. And that's where you need to put your attention. Sometimes writers, they hold back a little bit because they want to put it in the second book. But the hard reality is there may not be a second book. So this week, John, focus in on your story core. What does Jack want? Obviously, it has something to do with understanding whether he is this or that. And why can't he? And what happens if he doesn't? How muddled will his life become if he doesn't figure it out? The tease at the end of your second paragraph comes from the information in it, and it's like a worser case scenario from the tease that's in your first paragraph. Do you have any questions, John?
Only in the subject line. I sent out about 40 queries, and I read on the websites, and each one of them said in the subject line they wanted the word query, and they wanted the name of the book all in caps. This came right from the agents, what their format was, and that's why I put it that way.
Yeah, if they want query, if they ask for it, put it there. However, if your title is not really snappy, put in something else. Put in something else that will engage them. They're not going to hold your feet to the fire. You lied. This isn't your title. Yours is kind of interesting. To do two wrongs make a right. That's kind of interesting. That's engaging.
Well, it's actually a question. Can two wrongs make a right?
Okay. Got that wrong.
Yeah.
So I tell writers that when they say put your title in, if you don't have a title that grabs attention and engages and ask the question, makes them say, well, what is that? What's going on? You want them to be curious or interested. If the title doesn't do that, put something else in there. But if they want query, sometimes they want, and I'm glad you brought this up, John, sometimes agents ask that you put their name, query, and then your title.
Mm-hmm.
So put their name, put query, and then your title or something that will engage.
Can you add something snappy after it?
After what?
After you've put query, the title of the book, can you then
No.
put something snappy, or will they think that's part of the title?
No, you write something snappy in place of the title, or just write the title.
Okay.
You have normally, about I'm thinking 5 to 7 words that will stay on the same line, the subject line. That's what you want them to see. If you've got query in there, you've already lost a little space.
And they're also going to be reading the subject line way before they even open your email.
The subject line is why they open your email. If you don't have the subject line is what grabs their interest, period. And they either click on it and open it, or leave it, or delete it. The success of your query, John, depends on what you put in that subject line. Because you want people to open it, and like you mentioned that you had not received many responses. Well,
I got a lot of rejects.
Well, did you get some rejects back? You actually got something back?
Yes.
Well, that's a plus. Most people don't get anything back.
Yeah.
So, rejects today, acceptance tomorrow. Hey.
Mm-hmm. And the part about having his girlfriend in there, she becomes a major part of the story because with her multiple personalities, she actually did kill her husband. He finds out about it by digging up the body out behind the barn, and that's where the two wrongs make a right. They kind of help each other to get through. And he's actually killed some people that he didn't remember.
Well, think about it. If I tell you, just because something comes up in your story does not necessarily have to be in the query, because frankly, at this point, we don't care about his girlfriend. We care about him.
Yeah.
John, you have to write this in such a way that everybody's going to want to be on Jack's side. Geez, he's loaded with cash. Where'd it come from? Is it dirty money? Is it drug money? Is it blah, 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 blah? The fact that someone comes up later, figure out a way to put that in there if you have to. But I'm thinking that you need to expand more about Jack. As his memories start to come back, he realizes he has some physical attributes. He's got some special skills that most humans don't have. What does that mean? So that you don't want to have to justify your title by putting information in your query that doesn't further the understanding about your main character. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, off you go. You got your homework set out for you.
I may not totally agree, but you're the teacher.
Well, I'll tell you what, do it my way, and if it doesn't work, go back to the way you've been doing it.
Yeah, the way I've been doing it hasn't worked, so. that's
Well,
why-
hey, you have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
And besides, you don't want to mess my good record up. Come on, I got a really high achievement record here with my writers.
Now, when I read my query to Dr. Phil, he asked me, how's that working for you?
You know, that's one of the best things he's ever said. It's the only thing about him I remember is how's that working for you? And if you say not very well, then I'm always tempted to say, well, you know, Einstein created the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So between Dr. Phil and our friend Albert, you've got some clues to just jump off and try something different. Because I suspect you're a good storyteller. This sounds interesting, and somehow you need to hone in to hold your readers. Okay, now we're going to read Janet, and then we're going to read Alan. Janet, this is nonfiction, and yet it's interesting to read. So who would like to read Janet? Let's say who will read Janet.
I'll read it.
Okay, off you go.
Title or subject line, July 4th, 1879. American Independence Day in Japan. Story core. Ulysses Grant and Emperor Meiji were once young boys who loved horses. The culturally diverse paths of two great men come together in history on July 4th, 1879 to forge a friendship between two countries that still exists today. What do they want? To travel beyond their own backyards. What stands in their way? Civil war within their countries. What's the or else? A divided country cannot grow without changing the way things have always been done. Hiram and Sachi are two boys born worlds apart in the 19th century, but mirror one another's greatest challenge in life as men, to rebuild their nations after Civil War. One boy becomes Ulysses Grant. The other becomes Mutsuhito, the young emperor of Japan. Ulysses travels as far as his horses will take him in Ohio. Mutsuhito is never allowed to ride a horse or even be seen outside his father's palace in Kyoto. Ulysses is stubborn. Mutsuhito pesters his tutors with questions. The seemingly annoying qualities of these two boys turn into attributes as they grow into men. And on the occasion of a world tour taken by Ulysses in 1879, the two bridge continents and rival the paid tradition with one important, defiant act, a handshake. When Sachi Met Hiram is a nonfiction picture book of 1,230 words. Melding cultures has been my interest since becoming a longtime family member of a Japanese-American family. I've published articles in New Times Magazine, have served 5 years as co-editor of the Florida State Poets Association's annual anthology, and received the SCBWI 2015 Karen Cushman Award for a middle grade novel. Source quotes and bibliography are available upon request. I look forward to the opportunity of submitting for your review when Sachi Met Hiram.
Okay. There's a funny thing, JC. You didn't follow a format because you didn't have one, but you pretty much gathered the information you need for a nonfiction submission for a picture book, because you shared the story of these two men, continents apart, but growing up with the same experiences. Kids will relate to this. Okay, I've got a question for you. Is this historically correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because this, if so, this can make your story a lesson. It can make it fall into a category of a lesson type of picture book, which is more difficult for agents to sell than if you tell your story about events that actually transpired but don't go into nonfiction. And it all has to do with money in the schools. Nonfiction books for schools are hard to come by. It's better, and I've had a couple of clients who made this switch. They wrote nonfiction picture books, switched them to just plain picture books, and that started opening doors. So I thought about you when I read this, and I thought, okay, here's two resources for you. Do you know the Purple Crayon website?
I've been there. Yes.
Okay, Harold's got some information about cover letters, and of course the SCBWI has information about cover letters as well for picture books.
Right.
And if I were you, just knowing what's going on in the economy, and especially with our schools, I'd make this a picture book just as wonderful as you can make it with, I mean, I know you're not doing the illustrations, but you want to use words that tell the illustrator where you want the pictures to go.
Okay.
And how you want them to look. Now this could be an issue right here, the 1,000 word limit.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be, but I'm not sure if that's applicable anymore. Again, you can find out. And you have a really great award here. You really do, and that alone may make someone decide, I'm going to just take this out of the nonfiction. But if I were you, I'd never mention nonfiction.
Really?
It's a picture book about historical facts. Try two versions. One where you stress nonfiction and one where you stress just fiction, historical fiction.
Okay.
Pretty much the same thing except that first line. My book is and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's time to experiment, like John is going to be doing, with something a little differently than you may have been told before. My interest for all of you is helping you land agents who will take you the rest of the way. I think that agents have to be a little insane. It's a crazy business. But there are people who love books, and agents who deal with children's books, children's literature. Oh my gosh, they are so much fun. They all have very well developed inner children. Some of my favorite agents come from the kid industry. And again, do not use dear so-and-so, just start right out. Remember the smartphone. Although, isn't it interesting that Apple's new phone is bigger? It's the smart plus bigger brother. So, and then end with these things that you have, okay? You have any questions, JC?
No, that's a very good point that you brought up. I've been to workshops about nonfiction picture books and regular picture books, but that point you made about it being sellable to schools, excuse me, is a very good one. I mean, I haven't heard that at all.
All right. So, another point about that too, if you are classified as nonfiction, this will keep you out of some bookstores, simply because they have so many requests and such limited shelf space for fiction. Fiction with children's issues, children's picture books, outsells nonfiction a gazillion times.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point.
And I realize that this sounds to me like a labor of love, and I think it has wonderful potential. the two different worlds that have the same result?
Yes. Well, I think it would be easier to fictionalize it for me after having done the homework. I mean, doing it nonfiction, I've got all the homework done. So
Good. Use it.
the basis behind it is there. I just need to cut. I would have to cut 300 words, and I don't know where I would.
I tell you what, find out first. Find out what's required. Find out if you can go a little longer.
Mhm.
Because there is a category that's not often used about, but it's the story picture book. And
Yeah.
those are a little longer.
Yes.
You see, that's almost 30% longer than the norm.
Would a chapter book,
No, this would be a picture book, I think.
What did you call it? A
Well,
picture?
it used to be called story picture books or picture story books, one or the other. And again, the categories, they shift around a lot. One thing, Janet, that you have going for you as a picture book, I'm sorry, JC, gotta call you guys by your separate names, is that you have two cultures, and the art is so different here than it is here.
Yes.
And the act of defiance in Japan, harassing his teachers, is so different than riding his horse much farther than he's supposed to
Right.
and getting in trouble for pushing his freedom.
Yes.
And you can show those things, and what a wonderful contrast between there and here,
Yeah.
then and now.
It's fun. It was fun researching it and writing it.
I'm sure. So
And painful to cut the words because
it always is. Ask anybody here.
yes.
Are you having trouble cutting your words? Oh no, I just whacked them all away. No, that's challenging. But you know what? You can do it. Get your facts first. Find out what's required. And even don't cut your words first. Write your first draft as historical fiction. And some of the words may cut themselves. You may not need this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you'll know that as you go along.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have comments or? Nope. Okay. All right. We have one more to go. And this is from Alan. And then after this, we're going to do a little pitch session with Janet, who is probably hastily rewriting her pitch. Am I right?
One little thing.
Oh gosh, well, we're safe. This is just us. Okay, so someone needs to read Alan. Do we have any? Who hasn't read yet? Okay.
Well, I'll read.
Okay.
I don't mind reading again. Okay.
Okay.
This is from Alan again. Subject pitch line. Forgotten African-American true life hero escaped slavery, ruled thousands, entertained millions, died early, and inspired books. Richard King David, or Big Dick Cephas, is that right? Was one of the most famous African-Americans of his day, 1791 to 1831. He grew up among slaves, illiterate, derided, and feared by a world that increasingly controlled and devalued Black people. Yet he ruled a British war prison during the War of 1812 with more than 300 pounds of solid muscle. He measured 6'3", 6'5", or 7 feet tall, depending on the source. We can only guess his feelings and his life goals, although we know he was graceful enough to teach dancing and fencing. He was a pioneer boxer. After the war, he made himself the constable and last king of Boston's Black people. His sense of humor was legendary. He had 2 wives or a dozen and no known offspring. His skeleton, now lost, was displayed in public for at least 50 years. This first ever biography of a lost true life American legend explores how he became the central character in at least 5 novels, 2 plays, a dozen scholarly works, and a Technicolor Hollywood movie. Unraveling his mystery tells us as much about who we were and who we've become as it does about him. King Dick's life is a kind history detective story. is the jaw-dropping tale, or rather tales, of a working man who lived his everyday life in incredible ways. He reigned over thousands in Britain and Boston, yet he died of a rapid consumption from a severe cold induced by exposure at age 41 or 42. In fiction, he commanded from Haiti to the shore of Tripoli, became a revolutionary general, an expert on Haitian voodoo, and a wandering Muslim marabout or mad monk. Among his chronicles, all white and unsympathetic, were Nathaniel Hawthorne, a pioneer vaccinator, I'm doing great, I'm very sorry. Dozens of journalists from Maine to the southwestern frontier, and a Pulitzer Prize-winning racist historical novelist. Yet his true story could not have been written before the internet age. His life is so sparsely documented that he still demands speculation by those who encounter him. Dick's many and powerful fictive afterlives imply a kind of spiritual, non-religious immortality that will make film and miniseries producers salivate. The Last Black King of Boston, The Extraordinary Life and Stranger Afterlives of King Dick, is about 95,000 extensively researched words. It's based on my 2013 second History Master's thesis, which has attracted an exceptional 1,800 downloads from USF Scholar Commons Web Archive. The project represents a culmination of my 20 years plus of writing, producing, and directing award-winning nationally broadcast public radio documentaries about race in America. The Last Black King is my first book-length project. The second could be a multimedia, multi-platform adaptation of my Between Civil War and Civil Rights documentary series. I will unveil a massively revamped website devoted to that series and forum about America's continuing racial predicament in the next month or so. Thank you for your time and attention, Alan Lipkin.
Okay, now, all right, Alan. This is an extensive project, and your efforts are obvious. I've got a question.
I have not submitted it yet to anybody.
Okay, because I remember meeting you some years ago at wherever we were, that writers meeting.
Yep.
Okay, good. I thought I was a little nuts. Have you written a book proposal?
I've drafted one based on Larson.
Say it again.
I have drafted one based on Larson's book.
Okay, good. He's a good guide. Now, what came up for me is that this is more of a scholarly tome. I don't know if that's going to make it viable as a commercial nonfiction project, although my first thought was a university press may be interested. Here's the issue. You can't translate 1,800 downloads to book sales because the downloads are free. That this will translate into interest on a college level. So in a nutshell, what is your premise or reason for writing this story? Can you tell me in one sentence?
Unraveling his mystery tells us as much about who we were and who we've become as it does about him.
Who we were. Are you in
the last sentence of the first paragraph?
Okay. And your point is that we've come a long way, baby? I mean, what is the point?
But we haven't come a long way.
Both. The point is we've come less far than we think.
Okay. Now this came up for me in nonfiction. There very often are stories involved when it's about a person and biographies. How do you tell his story if there are very few facts about him? Do you tell the story through the people he was associated with? What is your vehicle, Alan, for telling his story?
It's to some extent, it's the people he was associated with. It's certainly the societies in which he operated. You know, a war prison, Boston of that time.
Okay. In other words, it's within It's
It is
within the
neutral content.
Okay, now your first paragraph, you have much more information, Alan, here than you need, because so much of this information would go into your book proposal. Remember that the point of a query, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is to engage the agent's interest, Alan, so they go, this is interesting. I'm wondering who's interested. They want to know about the market. And just in a sentence, Alan, who's your market?
I think everybody who's a fan of great man biography and American history and adventure, true life adventure.
Okay, see that description of who you think will be interested needs to go into your query. And what came up for me was you mentioned the novels, the plays, the works, and a movie that have touched on him. What can you add to that that's different or illuminating? Question, answer. Whoops.
That's your answer?
Don't you be barking at me. Come on now. I'm the one who gets to bark. Very funny. Okay, Alan, what can you add that hasn't already been said or done?
I thought it's all implied. All of them are fictionalized pictures of who he was, which overlook the even more extraordinary things that he actually did in real life. All of them are, the product of our own biases and prejudices compared to the extraordinary person who we now can find that he really was.
Okay. So the purpose of your book is to, I've got some choices here: entertain, inform, teach about civil rights, make a political point. Is it all of those, or one of those, or something I missed?
It's all of those, except I'd substitute cultural point for political point. It doesn't lend itself to any current party position.
Okay, well, where am I? Here we go. Just a minute here.
Well, you already have that.
Well, I just had to put it back in. Okay. Now, I think, Alan, I think that what you need to do for next week is that you need to revise and simplify your query so it's a quicker read. You have your first paragraph needs to reveal the core of the story that you're going to present. And in the first and or the second paragraph, it's really important to talk about your market and about your ability to write or tell this story. I've got a question here. Okay, you've got a site, you've got Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, you've got some social creds. That's becoming more and more important. I think what you need to figure out how to do, Alan, is how to tell the agent how you plan to reveal this man's life when there's not an awful lot of concrete information about him. And that's a bit of a challenge for you, but I think you're up to it.
It sounds like something very different than the goals of the fiction query.
It is different.
Information.
It is different. This is nonfiction. It requires nonfiction requires that the author be somebody who knows what they're talking about or has researched it. Nonfiction requires that the person giving the information actually has it. With fiction, you're creating these people in your head or these stories in here and bringing them forward. In nonfiction, it's out there already and you're grabbing it. It's a big difference.
Well, I thought my third paragraph more or less was designed to answer that. 4 years of research, blah, blah, 20 years of,
Okay, so that's fine. That works. What you don't want to talk about this. You don't want, I'm going to highlight that. Don't talk about that. Never say it's your first book, because you obviously can write, or your second book. That's not important. But
so you're not trying to sell your continuing market.
No, you want to interest the agent in your first book. That's all you have right now. If it doesn't go any further, the second one doesn't matter.
All right.
And that's the same with fiction and nonfiction. Many agents, Alan, that you'll find work in both.
Yeah.
Always they need to be interested. They need to be engaged in your protagonist, or in your case, in your topic.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to know that you can write it. With the fiction writers, they see this in the first and second paragraph. With the nonfiction, you have to show them, as you have done here, that you have researched this. It was a thesis. It had these downloads, and that you have done this, this, and this, and this, and this. But again, you have to make this shorter and easier, quicker to read, because you have this whole book proposal, which can be 50, 60 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're interested in this, then they will read that. And because you can do this electronically today, you're going to submit the whole thing at one time.
Yeah.
Got it?
I'm lost you there. The proposal goes with the first query letter?
Yep. Yep. Everything at one time. Look and see what the agents want. But now, in today's world, they want everything at one time, one email, no attachments. And that's 95% true in fiction. I'm not sure about nonfiction.
I'm even more confused. I mean, the proposal is like, including the chapter, will be 50 pages or so.
So what?
The first email should be all 50 pages.
The first email should be your query. If they are interested, they'll keep reading. If they aren't interested, they won't. All by email, one email. This is different. 2 years ago, it was query first, send proposal if they're interested. Not anymore. It's all at the same time. Okay?
Okay, so you're saying the proposal goes with the query.
It follows the query, same email.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, one strategy I adopted, I thought appropriate here, was that his achievements are so extraordinary, so out of the common, that just delivering them as I did, would pique the interest specifically of a nonfiction agent.
Well, you know what? Try it. Try some your way and try some my way and see what happens.
Okay.
I'm telling you that the way you've got his achievements listed, it's da 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 da. But you don't get a sense of the person. And even when a nonfiction book, Alan, about a person,
yeah,
it's the person that's interesting, and their achievements, but it's the person. This guy is big, smart, very accomplished. That's the person. And by the way, he did da 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 da. And in your book proposal, you list all of his achievements.
No, by no means. There's more. But okay, and the history detective story thing doesn't cover that?
No.
Okay.
Because I don't know what that means. No, you cannot. No generalizations. You have to show and sell the concept and tell how you're going to do it.
All right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Now, next week, we meet on the 4th. Deadline for submissions, Wednesday at noon. Start out with your subject line. Then your story core. It's so important to have this information at the top end of your query. Not necessarily for you, not for you nonfiction, 2 people, but for everybody else. Nonfiction people do not have to write a synopsis. Nonfiction people, it's a new category of humans. And I will tell you, anyone who struggled with a synopsis probably thinks, gosh, I should write nonfiction. With fiction, the synopsis, that makes writers almost as scared as the word query. It's not that difficult if you understand a format. And I will send all of you, probably in the Facebook. I don't think I can do that. Can I do a PDF attachment to our Facebook page? I bet I can. I'll try it. Otherwise, I will send you the link to this template so you can download it, and it will help you with the synopsis, know what to put where. And you have to be, Doree, you have to be really clear, and you too, Carol, you have to be really clear about your story core before you can write a synopsis, because the synopsis carries the story from the beginning to the end. And the query is something totally different. It ends with teases and that terrible or else. Now, for those of you who are attending this workshop and you're not members, thanks for being with us. I'm going to send you the link to this tip sheet. To this.
Can I back up for just a minute?
Yeah, quickly.
You know, in the first version of the query I sent you, I included the information that's the first ever biography in the subject line. You don't think that's important for the agent?
Alan, I asked you to submit 1 document, not 2, and you didn't respond, so I picked the second one.
All right.
It's important for you to...
I'm asking you a question about some of the content. I'm asking you about whether they need to know right up front that it's the first ever biography of this guy.
Tell me exactly how you would say it.
First ever biography of, actually what I had, first ever biography of forgotten true life African-American folk hero and jokester.
That's pretty long. You can certainly try it.
Okay.
You might not need to say first ever biography. You might just need to say first ever, first biography of, or remarkable or unbelievable story of, or something. Remember, Alan, you have a subject line, max 10 words. See if you can cut it.
Oh, it was shorter than the one that you did take.
Okay, well, I just took, since you didn't let me know, I just took the second one, period. So, yeah, work on that, and that would probably work. Okay?
Okay.
Okie dokie. Now, I've got a few comments here where, I'm doing something new next Saturday. I'm going to just try it. Open forum troubleshooting. Anybody can attend and anybody can ask me anything. I will not be evaluating homework. I'm amazed at how the kind of questions that come up that we simply don't have time to address here. Today we're going to go a little over 2 hours. I'm fine with that if you all are. But writers want to know about the agenting, getting an agent, how they work, what they look for, and they want to know how to find the good ones to query. So it's whatever comes up, even practice pitching if someone wants to. There are so many different paths and twists and turns and a few dead ends on the path to becoming published. So whatever comes up for anyone, next Saturday, 11 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern, you can just come on in. And if you've got some friends who are puzzled about this or that, tell them to drop on in. The link to that workshop will be pretty much every place, including on the website, on my website, and in my weekly newsletter, which goes to several thousand writers. So whatever. And for those of you who haven't started, or wherever you're starting, begin with the query. because the query is your key to writing everything you need in the submission. It helps you understand the core of your story, or in nonfiction, the purpose of it. And when you really truly understand your goal or the goal of your protagonist, it helps you go on to the next document, the synopsis, and actually the revision of your first pages. It doesn't matter how you've written your first pages. I am going to help you revise a little bit so they will appeal to the most important reader. That's the agent. Remember, you're still in selling mode. And first pages has been my experience from my years in the biz. First pages, first chapters are often rewritten totally. Sometimes they're just tossed. I'm amazed at how many, I do quite a few context evaluations, and I sometimes have to go to page 40 to find out where the story actually begins. Because it begins the moment something happens, and the opening of your story is that which engages the reader, i.e. the agent right now, but keeps them reading to find out what happens. Okay, we have Janet, who has volunteered to pitch. And Janet.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Well, now, I did at the Florida Writers Conference last weekend, I did 2 pitches. And one was the pitch for Glass Promises, the romance novel that was part of today's letter. It was interesting in talking with several other romance writers and all. Everyone said it's and it's true, because I've done 3 romance pitches. It's kind of hard to pitch a romance because they, but the pitch that did very, very well at the conference was my proposal for historical fiction that I'm working on. So which one do you want me to give?
Since we all know the story of Glass Promises, why don't you do that one?
Okay.
Let's see how you would tell me, the agent, what this is about. Now, and one thing I'm going to admonish you to do right off the beginning is to look, well, you can't look me in the eye because we're a long ways away. Look right into the camera. This was, I used to teach pitching at the FWA conferences, and I would say, eyes, look directly at the agent.
Right, that was one thing I learned, is the people who were reading off of crib notes or off of their iPad or off of their iPhone were not as well received as those who just got up and spoke and looked at the agents.
Because when you're doing this and you're doing it right straight to them, you are coming from the person you are. Whereas if you've got an iPad or notes or whatever, you're not being 100% genuine, and that is so important. And if here's the deal, a couple of my clients pitched and they just said they did a terrible job, but the agent helped them. Well, what do you mean by that? And they would ask questions and they would intercede through the stammers and stuff. So just go ahead, look in the camera and pitch me your story.
Okay. Glass Promises is a 72,000 word completed romance manuscript. It's about Grace Stone, who's the widowed daughter of a rich man's mistress.
Look up, stay up, no notes. Oh. Look up, look in the camera.
Okay, whose 4-year-old daughter is desperate for a daddy.
Okay, you got me right there. And you don't have to start off, in my opinion, with the title or the word count. Often, agents will say, so what you got? Well, tell me about your story. And your story is about Grace, who's a widow, and whose 4-year-old daughter is shopping for a dad. Okay. And right away, it's like, wow. So what do they do? And then you go.
Okay. When Grace unexpectedly meets Bo, Lily finds him to be perfect daddy material.
That's cute.
Okay. And it requires Grace to rethink having a man in her life again. Her second surprise is when she discovers a biological connection to her unknown father. But her joy with finding a family is tempered by, well, let's see, what was it? I'm trying to remember.
I'm sorry. See, I've thrown you off,
Yeah,
but that's okay.
her joy is tempered by a female family member who complicates her relationship with Bo and also puts her and her daughter's safety at risk.
Like what? How does a family member threaten a 4-year-old?
Actually, what happened was at this relative's house, because this relative had badmouth Grace, her daughter terrorized 4-year-old Lily when she was out of sight of the adults.
Okay, now I am lost. And fortunately you don't have to do this because you've already got somebody interested. But what took me astray is, first of all, I don't think you mentioned that she was the daughter of a mistress of a wealthy or well-known man. And so she never knew her father. So there are some things there that I didn't hear.
Okay.
And I don't know this issue of one revelation leads to another. And she discovers that the man that Lily has picked and that she's favoring is actually a relative.
Well, yeah, he's a stepson.
He's a step relative. And
Of her unknown father's sister. His stepmother is her biological aunt.
Well, okay, without going into a lot of details, it's enough to say that they are now, he's a what do you call a step? Well, a step relative.
A step relative.
I don't even understand that. He's a step relative, and this further complicates the fact that he's got a crazy sister or blah, 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 something.
Yeah.
Okay, because again, what interested me was she didn't know she had a family. She finds out she does, and her kid is shopping for a dad.
Right.
I think those are your key elements. And as a surprise, it turns out that she and Bo are oddly related in the step sense.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the agent before that, like I did, is going to be involved and ask you questions.
I'm making notes.
Well, here again, if you really, because you didn't do the story core. If you really, really, really know, what does your protagonist want? What does she want?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't, and she can't have it because she has like this mixed up family, just all entangled in a step sense, not blood relatives, but somehow mingled. And how does this impact her when one of the mingled relatives she'd be involved with is named Devillian, is a deranged fairy? You know, I couldn't resist that one. Sorry. But you see the point is that which is so enthralling needs to be told in a way that it doesn't take away from the bigger pictures. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've made notes for myself that I need to work on. I need to figure out that story core and get that down tight.
You have to be sure that it's right.
Yeah.
Because it's right at this point, it's not so important how you tell your story. It's that you, in the query, make sure that you hit the stuff that matters. Who wants what? Why? Why can't they have it? And what's the terrible or else twice?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of bad, really bad. and no bear comes out of the wood and eats the bad guys. That is not allowed.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, it's the nasty relative, and then serve her up. You know?
Right.
That takes care of your problem nicely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And again, practice this in the mirror. Look at yourself until you can't stand it. Practice it talking to the dog. Just get the core. Janet, once you get the core, it's easier to tell your story. Because what happened is you kind of then went wandering as she discovered that she was sleeping with a kind of relative, and that kind of relative circle expanded to include the potential dad for Lily. Remember the kid's name. It's a cute name. This story has a lot of potential.
Okay.
And see what happens, because here's the deal, Janet. You want to get this query into shape. You know, let's say next week you got it nailed, because you want to get it off. You don't want to wait forever.
Right.
In our days of with electronic submission, anybody who got a sure, send me your stuff, if they were finished with it. Send it off like that, and the agent would then find an inbox crammed, worse than usual.
Right.
Is this person with a big agency, a good agency?
The night agency?
Yeah, good. They're good. Yeah, the woman who runs that has a lot of experience in the business. She's very good.
Yeah.
I think it's Deidre. She's really good.
Okay.
And good agency presidents surround themselves with good people.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a bit of a deadline on this to get it to the best that it can be.
All right. Again, create your story core. Create your 3 things. Who wants what and why? Why can't they? And what's the terrible or else? And or else point 2. And submit it to the Facebook page and ask us for opinions.
I will.
Don't submit your query there until you've really cleaned it up for next week.
Right.
But do that for this, and maybe we can share thoughts, because right now we all know your story.
Yes.
And may go on, may even remember it farther than that. You'd be surprised. I remember stories a lot more than I remember people.
It's funny you talk about the title, because several people came up to me. In fact, one woman came up to me and said, when you said that title, she said, the hairs raised up on my arms. So I thought that was that was good feedback.
When I first read that title, and this is back a bit, I thought to myself, boy, there's a title that sells. Now, see, Alan had asked about the title or the subject line. In that case, your title is something that's going to capture interest.
Okay, good.
So that's a good title. And it's short. You know, you can't always do that. And in fact, Doree, I remember at one point she had a title that I thought was so cool. It was opioids, .. Can you hear me now? ? It's like, you think somebody's going to open that? For sure they are. And that's not the title of her story, but that's the subject line, because again, it's all about selling. You want them to want to read your work.
Okay.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said yes. All right, because now next week we're going to start on the synopsis. I'll give you some things to look at. But for you fiction people, not the nonfiction. And if you can, just give yourself a shot with maybe even just one-liners of 5 paragraphs that will go into your synopsis. But to do this, you have to have that story core. You have to know what it is you want to tell. Right. And for you nonfiction people, you have to know this. You have to still know what information you want to impart. And then how you do it, like JC might tell this as historical fiction, while Alan is definitely going for straight nonfiction. And that's okay, but you still have a premise, you still have a focus. Selling is selling is selling. I don't care if you're selling umbrellas or refrigerators. You have to convince somebody that you're the real deal, the writer with skill, the manuscript that's saleable. Okay, so anybody have any questions?
I have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we're writing our query and you said, say specifics, the specifics, that's a kind of a thing I struggle with. You don't have to say exactly where the place is and what the setting or the incident was, but refer to it, right?
Wait a minute. Say that again and use smaller words. I missed something there.
In our query, you said to be specific with details, but the details. Let's say, I'll just use an example. Sadie is actually in a museum on the field trip. And we don't have to say exactly what it is that happens that caused the situation.
No, you don't. In your case, during a field trip at school, we have to know that Develia goes with her to school.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's in your title, but still, you have to remind us that something happens and she becomes a YouTube viral explosion, which she hates.
Right.
Because she feels that people are judging her still on a much larger scale, which makes her desire even more poignant, that she wants to be seen and known as who she is, but until she knows that, it won't happen.
Ah, okay.
Until she can look at people judging her and think, screw you. You have no idea what I'm really like.
Right.
Your phrase about as she slithers by, oh God, that just hurts, because I know that for some kids with cerebral palsy, that's what they feel like. They're dragging.
Yeah.
And it takes great coordination, great upper body strength. How they can manage to do anything just amazes me. They amaze me, these kids. I see them all the time. And so kudos to you, Mom. I know you got a powerful kid who has a challenge and deals with it.
Well, actually, it's not cerebral palsy, but he's grown up with some disabilities. So my feeling is any disability it transfers to those same kind of feelings for a kid, whatever they may be.
Yes. And whether they show or not, we all have disabilities.
True.
Called life.
Yeah.
And we have stuff. And you can't always see it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, walk a mile in my shoes or be quiet, that kind of thing.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, this is a good group. Interesting projects. And when you have little snippets or something that you'd like some information on, use the Facebook page. And congratulations to everybody. The fact that we all got on Facebook in less than 2 weeks, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. I mean, I'm usually the worst because I've never done Facebook. It gets in the way of my work. But I realize for us, it's a perfect forum to meet and share.
Exactly.
So we'll meet and share with each other there, okay? Any other questions?
I have a question, Molly.
Sure.
If you don't mind, the nonfiction girl here.
That's all right.
So challenge me with the homework that I should be doing for next time.
Okay, you're going to do some research. You're going to go to Harold's Purple Crayon and look at cover letters.
Okay, got that.
Look at cover letters for fiction. And then you're going to go to the SCBWI and look at cover letters for fiction.
Okay.
And then you're going to, again, go to
So for my homework to submit, you want me to do a synopsis?
I want you to do, no, you don't do a, yes, you do. Oh, good.
Well, see, that's what I'm.
Oh, that's right, because you're going to do, you're going to shift a little bit. So
So now I've got my fiction hat on. Nonfiction.
I want to get a hat that says geek, which would tell me that I've mastered this technical stuff as I'm doing it. That's right. So you're not going to be the nonfiction person anymore. You're going to be the fiction person.
Well, I am a historical fiction person, so.
But that is fiction because it's storytelling. But you need to find out how many words and a little more information about the cover. And you will want to learn how to write a synopsis, but you never will submit it for a picture book. Because you just submit the picture book. You don't have to tell about it, just submit it.
Right. I know that's
my issue was how many words.
Yes.
Okay, and we've got a question here from Laura. Hey, Laura, thanks for being with us. Non-members, she wants to know how non-members can join the Facebook page. Laura, you have to be a member. You have to join the group. That's one of the perks. And you can go to my website and find out more about that. And my website is getpublishednow.biz and click on Submission Central. And we would welcome you. You've been through the fire. This is the fire. And for those, not everybody can be here, Laura, every time, but everything at this point, everything is posted. So you can read the transcript and you can watch the video and keep up with the class. If you can stand to listen to me for 2.5 hours, you can raise teenagers. So it's like, and yes, right now it's always Friday at 1 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern. Any later in the day, I go into stupid, because I get up at 5:30 when the world is quiet. I like to write then. I have raised teenagers, and you're still saying, yay for you. That was a trial. I always wanted to know where I could train my kids in and what happened to them anyway. So,
Molly?
yes.
I lost you here and have the don't cut your meeting short thing. Is there a time limit on the Zoom?
Nope, I set this up for 3 hours, so we're okay.
Oh, because I don't know how I lost you. Okay, I can hear you, so.
Well, good, and I can see you, so.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's what's important, right?
Okay.
Okay, so Janet, good question. I got very taken with, now she's going to be fiction. If you want to write the synopsis, that might help you at least structure your story beginning to end if you haven't written it already. But you will never have to submit one when you can submit the whole thing, unless it's too long and unless you have to submit a synopsis for a longer piece. But you're going to find that out. Go through the SCBWI website. Great stuff. Same with Harold.
Yeah, I've been to the SCBW website several times, but I'll check out the Purple Crayon. And I did take a workshop with SCBWI with someone, an editor who was really looking for nonfiction picture books. And she said they usually like to keep it around 1,200 words. So that's where I came up with the length of my piece was.
Oh, that way you can submit this to her too as well.
I'm going to.
And
this is why I'm practicing, so I can.
Exactly. You put the feelers out every place.
Yes.
And see, it's there are no limits. And when you get someone who specifically works in nonfiction, that means they have a lot of contacts in that.
Right. That they might have markets.
Well, and they know exactly who to take it to. So that's perfect. Good for you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. So I will see you all next week. We got Friday and Saturday if you can stand 2 days of me. Otherwise, get your homework in on Wednesday. Ask your questions on the Facebook group, and let's see where this goes.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay, bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye. Right on.
Bye.